The shout now. Well done, Bobby Charlton. Well done, Manchester United.
It's a Sheringham and Solskjaer has done it! Bobby Saab saved it! United again! Renee! A magnificent goal by Robin van Persie!
Welcome to United Hour, your official Red Cafe podcast for all things Manchester United. I'm your host, Nick.
And I'm Ashwin.
Yeah, we've just got a two-man pod this week. Had a late dropout due to somebody trying to run over Ed today. So yeah, I hope you're all right, Ed. But yeah, two of us are here anyway because we had to discuss this Tottenham game. Lots to talk about. Yeah, the main focus today will be this Spurs game, which has given us 6 wins in a row for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Clearly the greatest Manchester United manager ever in the making. I think, it was actually, already surpassed Matt Busby's record with 5 in a row after the last Reading game, which we'll give a brief mention to. We'll talk, of course, about Ole versus Pochettino, and then look forward to the next couple of games, which is Brighton at home and Arsenal away in the FA Cup. But let's look, lots to talk about in this Spurs match. So let's get straight onto that. I'd say I don't know how confident you were pre-match, Ashwin. I actually wasn't that confident. I was more kind of thinking I would be happy with a draw because, Spurs in pretty decent form. First big test for Ole, and as well the fact that we'd won 5 in a row. You just kind of think, look, 6 is asking for a bit too much. And a couple of Spurs mates had been sending me messages saying, let's have a bit of a bet on it. And I didn't really actually want to, but just,
So you made some money.
Well, that was it. I actually didn't want to put any money on it because I was kind of thought it was going to be a draw, but, they kind of forced me into it by pushing you. So I said, all right, go on then. I'll lob a tenner on it with you, even though I'm not feeling super confident. In the end, they're the ones who are really good. And in fact, my Spurs supporting mate who's just fighting with me in my fantasy mini league even had put Rashford and Shaw on the substitutes bench, which is how confident he was feeling, and now so he's absolutely double gutted after this match. But were you feeling confident pre-match?
I thought Spurs would win, to be honest. I guess my view coming into the match was just I was more interested to see how we would approach it, because I haven't seen. All we've seen so far prior to this match was, Solskjaer implementing attacking tactics against teams that we clearly have, way more talent than.
Yeah, and those dominating possession.
Right. It's just a totally different match. So I was just more interested to see how we would approach it. I didn't trust us to get a clean sheet. That was my main concern because I just didn't think, Spurs, they're pretty. I think they've only been. I think they had failed to score maybe in only one match prior to this the entire year. And in general, they have been a very good attacking team going forward, especially in the last month or so. So I just thought there was a good chance that, they would at least put in 1 and maybe even 2. And so I guess I even texted, I was messaging with one of my friends, a Spurs fan, and he was saying that he asked me what I thought. And I was like, I think for United to get any result, I think we'll need to score at least twice. That was what I thought. I thought, maybe you get a draw at 2-2. If you're lucky, you get a win at 2-1. So that was kind of my mindset. I don't know, if I was betting on it, I probably would have bet on the draw, but I wouldn't have felt very confident about United getting a result, or at least even coming out with a point, and definitely not all 3.
Yeah, and like you say, the big thing is about just seeing how Ole dealt with a kind of different style of game and changed the system. That was the most interesting thing and has really given me so much more confidence in him than any of the other matches so far, just to see how he could adapt, do something quite different, and it's actually resulted in a win for us. If we look at the difference that we were playing more on the counter attack, maybe giving Spurs a bit more of the ball obviously than in these matches that we've played against so-called weaker opposition, and the really interesting thing a lot of people are talking about as well as being this kind of, how it was set up with Lingard's position playing over there. How do you think he was deployed? Because I've seen different people describe it in different ways. Like I've seen this thread actually at the moment on Red Cafe where somebody's describing Lingard as a false 9, which it wasn't really for me at all. What I saw was a setting up with a midfield diamond with Matic holding Pogba, Herrera, and although, all right, Pogba's given more freedom than Herrera for sure, Lingard kind of in front of them, and then we've got two up front, but often I know why people are calling Lingard a false nine, because our two attacking players are often sent very, very wide, which then sometimes you feel, well, who's playing central then? And then they kind of think, all right, the central attacker is Lingard. But yeah, for me, he's more like the point of the diamond there. And yeah, look, it worked out, and
Yeah.
we'll get onto it straight away. But the actual goal all came from this.
Pogba. It's a threatening ball to Rashford. And Rashford fires it across Lloris and into the net and sends Manchester United into the lead. Late in the first half, typical of the quick counter-attacks that they've been looking to produce. And this one has hit the bullseye.
Absolutely devastating for Manchester United. Pogba's pass is world-class. And it's Trippier's one that gives it away, but Lingard alive. In transition, Manchester United, this is what's been happening since the start of the game. Those two centre-backs isolated by split strikers. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's tactics have just come alive and worked an absolute treat. And it's whether Rashford can finish.
2 months ago, there's no way he's finishing that kind of goal, right?
Yeah, and I think what was really good about the finish was sometimes it's not even that he would have, blasted it way over or something, but I think a lot of times when he's in a position like that, his mindset is to try and overpower the keeper rather than, just try and go for as much power as possible. And so a lot of, I feel often that he, even if he doesn't blast it way over, he'll just hit it really hard, but it would have been right at Lloris. And in this case, he didn't just blast it. He was definitely aiming for the far corner. And, obviously he hit it perfectly, but, that whole sequence was really nice. And it was kind of interesting because I think it was essentially like the way I thought of the first half, at least the first 60 minutes, really, I thought we were significantly better than Tottenham. I think it was so refreshing because, when under Mourinho, I feel like we were always trying to not just nullify the opposition, but nullify everything they did at the expense of any of our attacking play, right? So it was always like Lukaku would be at the halfway line, but everybody else would be deep. Everybody else would be defending, shuttling around, and that was it. And it was just that was the entire game plan, is try and stop anything the opposition can do in a very, very deep block, and then maybe off a goal kick or off De Gea just punting it, whatever. Hopefully Lukaku can flick it on like we did against Liverpool last year, and one of the wingers can run on to the end of it, and we score a goal, right? That's what we did against Tottenham last year, actually, at Old Trafford. That's how we won, right? Martial ran onto a flick on from Lukaku. But yesterday it was, he paid them the proper respect. He knew that, okay, I don't know how much you've watched Spurs recently, but they play pretty narrow, actually. They're attackers, and they get all their width from their fullbacks. So he kind of made a calculated risk, right? He took a calculated risk, right? He was like, okay, well, I will let your fullbacks have these wide areas, but it's that's going to happen because I'm going to leave Martial and Rashford high and wide. The entire time they were high and wide. And so every time, there were a few times even before the goal where Martial got in once and maybe even twice, and then I think Rashford got in another time, and you could kind of see what he was going for, because as soon as they turned the ball, I think they had 60% possession in the first half to whatever we had, but they were comfortably had more possession. But anytime we turned it over, we were immediately out on the counter, and that was something that we talked about this on the last pod, but it was something that under Mourinho, who is all about playing this defensive counter-attacking style, we were never seemed to pose much of a threat on the counter in these big matches. And yesterday, like I said, every time we got turned the ball over, we had chances to get in behind the defenders. And I think Martial had a one-on-one against Alderweireld once. I think another time he played in Rashford, who hit a shot. Lloris saved it. So there were always these opportunities, and that was just, it was very nice to see him. He took a risk, right? And like, that's fine, but the risk came with the reward. And luckily yesterday, we obviously, if you give up the first goal, it changes a lot, but we did it. We scored the first goal, and that is that's a credit to the approach he took. And I think, we've always said, it's not about playing on the counter, right? Like under Ferguson, we did that all the time against Arsenal. It was actually hilarious, where we would go play Arsenal. They would have 75% possession, but we would have like 8 or 9 way better chances than whatever they created. So it's not about going to like the Emirates or whatever yesterday at Wembley and just dominating them with possession. We don't need to be City, right? That doesn't need to be how you are positive. But there should be attacking intent in what you do, and that was apparent in how we played. As soon as we got the ball, there was always a positive intent to immediately get the ball forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually quite a strange thing that Mourinho teams are often really good on the counter.
Every one of his teams has been good on the counter before us, right?
Exactly, and it never really worked for us. And I sometimes think we talked on this pod and talked about that maybe we don't have the players for that, But now we look at it, and you see a goal like this, and you say, yeah, look, we do have the players for it. But yeah, okay, perhaps under Mourinho it was more likely Lukaku playing, and maybe he's just not the right one to be playing in that kind of way. I mean, it was interesting as well to hear Pogba's post-match, and he talked very much where, he was getting a lot of credit for this ball he played out to Rashford that just, looked like the pass of the season.
It reminded me of his pass in the World Cup final to Mbappe. It was almost like the same kind of pass, right in that same channel.
Yeah, and we know that Pogba's passing is his number one attribute. And, I'd almost go as far as to say that he's the best passer in the Premier League.
And dabbing is also close up.
Yeah. But yeah, look, he gave credit actually to the management team and said, look, we've been practicing that exact ball all week. The long diagonal out to whether it's Martial or Rashford each time. And it's exactly what we've been looking to do, like you mentioned before, getting into space or where Tottenham's fullbacks have been attacking. And we've been just looking to hit that ball every time. As you say, for me, we won that first half, even though, yeah, they probably had more possession. But yeah, we had other pretty good openings and chances as well. It wasn't just that. I mean, look, there was a big change at half time. I mean, you said 60 minutes. I'd say, it's pretty obvious almost from the half time that they were changing up their system. I think, yeah, he moved to a kind of 4-2-3-1. I mean, more clearly 4 at the back, and he wasn't sending the fullbacks up as much at all. And then it became more of a midfield battle, I suppose.
And they were playing a lot. Like Lamella actually helped them kind of do that because he plays in those little spaces between the lines. So I think Matic had a really hard time with that kind of track because, Eriksen was playing deeper. So I think there was a little confusion as to where, should Herrera go with him? Should Matic sit? I think there was a little confusion about that. And it was kind of unclear how they wanted to handle it. But when I said 60 minutes, because even in that first 15, yeah, they started off really well. You're right. They had that Ali chance really early, and then Kane had a chance very early. But even after that initial burst they had out of halftime, I think Pogba had 2 or 3 chances that he missed. One from Martial laying it off to him right at the top of the box. Then there was another one where he took a shot, it got deflected high in the air, but Eriksen was tracking him, and he just kept going, and Eriksen had no hope at all of muscling him off the ball. But Lloris tipped it over the bar.
It's true, actually, because obviously De Gea has been getting all the Superman plaudits for this game, as he should do.
Right.
But Lloris actually made 3-4 pretty important saves himself.
Right.
Like you say, especially from Pogba. And we could have easily been 2-0 before Spurs had that kind of period where they had several good chances. And really, I'd say, we should have been 2-0 maybe before they really started turning on the pressure.
I thought Lingard, after 60, he physically looked completely spent after 60. He took a few touches you could just tell he was running on fumes after 60, 65 minutes because, he took a touch and he just Herrera played it to him out of pressure. And, Lingard isn't necessarily, he's not the most dynamic player, but he's pretty intelligent. He's not going to play like a stupid pass back or something, but he just kind of passed it back to him right back into pressure. And I remember going crazy at the time about it because it was kind of when Spurs had this extended period of, they had just kept coming at us wave after wave. And it was kind of annoying because it was like a point where you could have broke. But yeah, so I think when he and a lot of them, Rashford looked pretty spent after a while. I think Martial was pretty spent, and that's why he got taken off when he did. I didn't think he had much gas left. Pogba seemed pretty spent.
But yeah, no, but it's like something that's great to see as well because, these stats were thrown out under Mourinho about how our team had one of the least kind of, kilometres run in them and how different players hadn't done anywhere near the amount of work as I think it was the West Ham game or something where they had some player who'd come on, I think it was Snodgrass or somebody had come on for about 15 minutes and had basically done more running than Lukaku had done in 90 minutes in the whole match. And these stats were being thrown out all the time. So yeah, to see our players actually busting their gut till they literally can't go anymore is great to see. We had, of course, had a bit of a different build-up to this game than Tottenham because they'd had to play a pretty difficult Carling Cup semi-final, whatever, League Cup semi-final, whereas we were off in Dubai. These Dubai things, sometimes they can go either way, that everybody talks about it being a rest and relaxation, but I do sometimes wonder about that because you have to do these kind of longish flights away, a change to kind of jet lag, time difference, staying somewhere else. So you're never sure how it all goes, but seems to have worked out for us. And I think the main thing is that they could bit of team bonding and everybody being together and the whole new management team and all that, spending some real time with all the players.
Right.
And you can see, every week by week, it's just getting stronger and stronger. That feeling between them all, I think now, and that everybody's really moving forward on the same page. We giving a lot of credit to Ole here, but yeah, these kind of ideas about exploiting the space behind Spurs fullbacks, we don't know whether it's come from Phelan, Ole, even there's obviously McKenna, Carrick in there, but yeah, you can see as well, like when they sometimes move over to the bench and show that they're all discussing things together, kind of during the match. And I think I mentioned that when I'd gone out to the Huddersfield game, I could see Phelan actually on the touchline as much as Ole. So the moment I think is as much as everybody's talking about Solskjaer, there is a real team there all working together. And look, things are working out great. Like I said, this is the one that we were all worried about, the first big test. But, we shouldn't get too excited because obviously without David De Gea's heroics, I don't know where we could have been in this game. 11 saves, and it was just one after another. I will say that I remember him actually making much better saves because I think some of Spurs' finishing was a bit off.
I think some of that is just because he's so good at positioning himself. And there's the one chance that I really remember was Ali. Dele Ali, right? He got the ball. It was like a lofted pass from Eriksen, and then he took the control right inside of Lindelof and kind of curled it towards the far post. And in live time, when you watched it at speed, it looked like, wow, what a save. Amazing diving save that he made outstretched. But then you watch it in slow motion and he doesn't even have to move that much. But, when it happens, 5, 6, 7 times, at some point it's not just bad finishing. It's that he's a step ahead, right? He's reading. He knows, he knew what Ali wanted to do before he even took the shot. He knew he just knew he was going to the far corner. I thought he was just so quick yesterday in his speed of thought, and he seemed so sharp in terms of knowing exactly, where they wanted to go. Even I think Kane had that chance where he tried to shoot it to the far. Basically, the same chance that Rashford had. But
I know.
But De Gea's positioning was better, right? I think they showed it on Match of the Day, maybe, or
Loris was more wide from the post, whereas De Gea is inside of the post, so has the chance to make that save.
Right, and it was those are the differences in just positioning. Where, because when you watch that Rashford goal, you wouldn't say Loris necessarily was to blame, but then you look at the positioning when you slow it down and everything, and you can kind of see why that opening is there. Because of his positioning, whereas with De Gea,
and in fact, Lloris did even get a hand to it. So like I said, if he'd been a yard to the right, then yeah, it probably means he's saving it.
Yeah. So it just, I think De Gea was amazing. And I just wanted to go back real quick because I did have some stats on. You mentioned about running under Mourinho versus Ole, but yeah. So United, in our first 17 Premier League matches, we only out sprinted another team twice, which was against Arsenal and Fulham in December. And in Ole's first 5 games, we've done that in league games anyway. We've done that three times already against Bournemouth, Newcastle, and Tottenham yesterday. And Tottenham is one of the teams that I think is generally, you would say they're one of the more fit teams in the league. So to match their work rate or even outwork them, I guess, is a testament to at least changing philosophy and the players putting in shifts for Solskjaer, which obviously is maybe the biggest part of management, is getting your players to buy in. So I thought that was a pretty telling statistic.
Yeah, definitely. And I've seen, there's a lot of comparison stats going around now. There's things about Pogba, has been involved in more than 50% of our goals since coming back into the team, either assisting or scoring. Rashford has scored for 3 games in a row for the first time in his United career.
Yeah.
I will like to remind here again that for weeks I've been saying I want to see Rashford get a run of games up front and that he's going to deliver. And there was a lot of people doubting that when I first said that a couple of months ago. But yeah, it's happening now. And yeah, look, it's great to see, and I said it even last week. We had a big discussion about when, Lukaku and Sanchez are fit, should they be coming back in the team? But yeah, for me, they'll sit on the bench. And until any of the other players has a loss of form or they do something outstanding coming off the bench, there's no way they should be starting any of these games. In fact, Sanchez wasn't even on the bench, and I didn't see, is he injured at the moment, or is he just...
They said he was still hurt. I'm not sure. That was weird, though. I thought, because he trained the entire week in Dubai. But at the same time, Solskjaer doesn't seem upset with him about anything. He actually had all these quotes about, how he thinks he's still an amazing attacker and he needs to, it's up to him to get it right and all these things. So, that was really weird. But actually, just one last nerdy stat about counterattacking also. But, we'd mentioned, we were not a good counterattacking team under Jose, and all of a sudden really looked pretty lethal on the counter. So yesterday in the first half, we had 3 fast breaks according to Opta, and apparently that is as many as we had in all 17 matches under Jose.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's really amazing.
Yeah, and especially when Jose, was often set up for that. He's often we're setting up to kind of, people talk about parking the bus and all, and but counterattack was what he was all about. So yeah, it is really bizarre that it just never really happened under him when it should be his absolute forte. And people question whether we had the players for it or what, but yeah, we can see now that there was just something else missing there for sure. I mean, I don't know if you saw, like I said, we shouldn't get too excited about this win because, Pochettino actually, did you see he described this as the best 45 minutes, the second half, obviously.
That's such a ridiculous quote.
It is, obviously he's going way OTT, but yeah, I know he's trying to make the point that we've actually played damn well. And he was actually humble enough to admit that when they beat us 3-0 earlier in the season, that maybe it was the other way around, where, we actually played pretty well and they just managed to get those couple of goals in the few chances they had. But yeah, look, he was simply making that point that Spurs did actually, second half especially, you can kind of call it a game of 2 halves. But yeah, they did have a crazy amount of chances, which is a worry that we've given them that many chances because, on another day against a different team, we're not going to keep a clean sheet if the same kind of things happen. So yeah, we do have to think about big tests coming up. I mean, Arsenal we've got in the FA Cup in a couple of weeks. Of course, I think we've got about 5 or 6 matches now before we play Paris Saint-Germain in the Champions League again. So yeah, those kind of days we have to think about that we're not going to get away with this every time. Although it did remind me of people have talked about this as being De Gea's best performance, but I actually remember when we beat Arsenal last season.
Yeah, that's the best one.
Exactly. That day he was pulling off. I think he made something like 11 saves in this game, but he made 14 that day, and there was at least 2 or 3 that were better than anything.
Well, he had that double save. He had that double save against Sanchez and Lacazette. That was that was amazing. That was just amazing.
And yeah, I even remember there was an Everton game a couple of weeks where it wasn't. I think it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago where he didn't make as many saves and it wasn't as vital, but he pulled off kind of 2 or 3 of the best saves he's ever made in that one match. So yeah, people do often have short memories of these kind of things, but yeah, it's still obviously one of his top performances. And yeah, look, we can't really look at it any other way apart from that. Yeah, he was man of the match and saved us yesterday.
Well, it was awesome after the match. Like when they show that they keep the camera on and they kind of talk over as all the players are doing whatever. But it was pretty funny because after he went over to the away supporters and clapped them off, he like basically everybody on the team came up to him. Everybody on the team came up to him.
Yeah,
it was. I mean, that's how you know. That's
I saw that. Yeah, there was young Lingard all were like giving him a massive hug, and the equivalent of scoring a hat trick or something like that.
Yeah, I think Mata came over and just had his hands on top of his head and said, "Wow,"
bowing down. And yeah, look, I hope these kind of things as well, because his contract situation is very up in the air still.
Do you think it really is though? I think it's just a matter of threading the need. I think there's like probably some monetary difference. They just have to make up they have to find the middle ground. I can't see him leaving.
I don't know. Like at this point, actually, I wouldn't even begrudge him leaving just because he's been here. There was a couple of times before where I would have been pretty pissed off because, we stuck through him through early years where he was pretty dodgy when he first came through, stuck with him and, turned him into this kind of world-class goalie that he is now. And yeah, if he'd left a couple of those times, I would have been pretty annoyed. And, there was the time under Van Gaal where there was that whole fax last day of the transfer window fiasco when he was supposed to be going to Real Madrid and all of a sudden our fax machine wasn't working or whatever. And at that time as well, people thought he was leaving. Now, if he said, look, I want to go back to Spain and play a few years, I wouldn't even begrudge it to him.
But where is he going to go in Spain, right? Because Real just bought Courtois, so they're not going to go for De Gea. And then Barca has, Ter Stegen, right, who's like pretty established there. So, I mean, I guess he could go back to Atletico, but wages, like, it's not realistically going to happen.
Yeah, no, can't see him going.
Like the only team, right, would be Juve, but I think it's really like even the way he said something yesterday after the match where he was talking about it. Every time he talks, he always says like, right? He said like, "This is Manchester United" and stuff like that. You don't get these kind of like wishy-washy. Like when when Pogba had his whole thing in the beginning of the year, there was never like you could kind of sense that he's obviously not happy with Mourinho. Maybe he's kind of looking for an angle out, and I don't sense that I think with De Gea, it's more like he needed a reason. He needed the club to give him a reason to sign a new contract, right? Like, why am I saying? And if nothing else, I do think that Solskjaer just kind of infusing the team with like, hey, look, you guys are awesome players. Like, I think maybe, I mean, it's crazy to think, but in some way, Mourinho took that from them, right? The way his approach to matches and
no, and totally. And I do think that one of the reasons that they've got rid of Mourinho and gone for new is the contract situations of people like De Gea and Martial, who may have been, pissed off, and even Pogba and angling for moves and whatever. And now, they're going to say, look, maybe we want to be part of this. Yeah, there's something new happening here. This, there's a lot of positivity, and this is something we want to be part of going forward. And I do think that is one of the big reasons behind the change. It wasn't just results and whatever. It is players like that and where they're at in their situations. And no, totally, I agree with you. When you see De Gea, it doesn't seem like that. I just said if he decided that himself, I won't begrudge him. But now I think that he'll feel here that there's something going on that he wants to stay for.
In by Townsend, there's Benteke! Oh, David De Gea pulled out another one of his wonder saves.
And here's Hutchison, and what a save from Schmeichel. Fantastic reflex save.
Iwobi allowed to turn. Lacazette, great shot! What a save! Oh, and again! David De Gea! Oh my word! Crossed it again and a good one. And not it down! A wonderful save by Schmeichel! Soleil's cross, Aguero! Oh, what a save! That is brilliant, De Gea! How has he reached that? Because he's the best.
This kind of discussion has come up a couple of times over the years, and it's basically, who is De Gea now seriously taking Schmeichel's for me, there was still no contest between Schmeichel being our all-time greatest goalkeeper and possibly even the all-time greatest goalie, full stop, in the history of football. But yeah, every time this question came up in the past, I always said no, it's still Schmeichel. De Gea's doing really well. But yeah, there are still deficiencies in De Gea's game. And one of the big ones is still there, is about organising the defence in front of him. I don't know if he's ever going to take up that kind of mantle in the way Schmeichel did. I don't know, that possibly Schmeichel's a bit before your time, isn't he?
Yeah, I did not catch that. Just highlights on YouTube, unfortunately.
Yeah, so look, the big kind of differences for me and why I've still always said Schmeichel's the better goalie is how much he used to be able to organise the defence and deal with everything in front of him, whereas still a bit of deficiency in De Gea's game.
Yeah.
And also, he used to pull out some pinpoint accuracy throws to set up attacks. And, De Gea is great with his feet, and his distribution and all is probably better than Schmeichel's ever was. But Schmeichel used to have this ridiculous throw where he could set up attacks. And like I said, this goal and this pass that Pogba did to Rashford for this goal, Schmeichel used to make that kind of pass from his arms and set up like wingers, in the last third of the pitch with a throw. Never seen keepers do that kind of thing ever since. But yeah, like I said, De Gea is getting closer and closer for me. So yeah, it's becoming more and more of a difficult debate. But yeah, I would still say for me that Schmeichel still pips him. But yeah, we'll hopefully De Gea can still stay for a few more years and make the difference there.
I mean, I think it would be. I think a lot of it, and obviously, again, I didn't see Schmeichel play, definitely not at his best. So I can't necessarily say one way or the other. But I do think that what hurts De Gea in this comparison is always just the team success, and he's been at United at a time where the team has just not performed up to par. No matter, and obviously, I don't think anybody would say that is in any way his fault. But you still kind of you don't get that. You don't get elevated in that same way when the whole club, when everybody's winning, right? So hopefully we can get back to winning Premier Leagues, maybe winning a Champions League this year.
Well, yeah, maybe, we're starting to get a bit too excited, but yeah, crazier things have happened. I mean, yeah, look, if we just look at even top four now, we're just 6 points behind top four. And in fact, this win only puts us 7 points behind Spurs.
Yeah, and apparently Kane, he might be out for up to a month.
He did, limp off, and it wasn't looking good. And of course, Spurs have now got Son going off to the Asian Football Cup now as well. I think he's going to be missing 4 or 5 matches if Korea go all the way, and they are one of the favourites for that.
Right.
So yeah, he might be away for a while. So yeah, this will, of course, go back to the question that we had last week about Spurs' squad. There was a Tottenham supporting friend of mine who wasn't happy about how we talked about their lack of depth because actually told me, and I was actually quite surprised by this stat that Spurs have actually used more players than anybody else in the Premier League this season. I think it was something like 26 players have appeared for them in league matches this season. We were actually only just slightly behind. We're the second most on 25, but I think that had a lot to do with Mourinho randomly changing his lineups week to week and players going from starting to not even in the match day squad from one week to the next.
3-man backlines for no reason with her at center back.
Yeah, I mean, it does show that Spurs do have some numbers, but depth obviously isn't just about numbers, it's about quality. And they've got some young players like Foyth and Walker Peters who've been appearing,
and a lot of that's just happened because of injuries. It's not like he doesn't want Kyle Walker Peters. He had 3 assists in one match, and then he didn't play the next match as soon as Aurier was healthy or as soon as Trippier was healthy. Like, he doesn't want to use the depth that he's using, so that's a little bit different than choosing to use your depth, right? Like, City is deep, right? Nobody would look at their team and say they're not deep. Even if Pep only uses, I don't know, whatever he uses, 16, 17 guys, you would still say they're deep squad.
Yeah, City's is ridiculous. In fact, I saw City's game, we're recording just after City have played tonight, and I saw their bench today had Mahrez, Aguero, De Bruyne, all sat on the bench basically.
Yeah.
And they've still managed to win that match pretty easily. And yeah, Liverpool as well have made some pretty good signings. But
even them, I don't think you would say they're particularly deep.
They've still always got a couple of, good players on the bench.
No, they're not bad, yeah, for sure. I think, actually in depth, we are probably, in my opinion, the second deepest squad in the league. We just don't, we're not balanced, right? Like, that was even with Solskjaer, like
Yeah, well, I'd actually say that we've got a bloated squad. We actually need to get rid of some
100%.
players. We've got too many players who are even on high contracts, which is why we can't get rid of them, who are just fringe players. And I'd prefer to see more young players get a chance than the likes of, I don't know, Darmian, Rojo, maybe Fellaini, even though I've never had a big problem with him myself. But yeah, it looks like he's not going to be fitting into this new regime.
Well, you're a big Mourinho fan, so obviously.
So yeah, I think we've actually got a bloated squad. We actually need a bit more focus, maybe on having a bit more quality over just quantity. So yeah, squad depth has different kind of facets to it, and yeah, I think for sure that Tottenham, 2 or 3 players, not even top class, just squad players in your kind of 30, 40 million range would make a huge difference to their kind of prospects going forward.
Definitely.
And yeah, look, we'll see how they cope now. If Kane's out, if Son's off, that will really show.
And they have a bunch of fixtures coming up too, right? They have a league match against Fulham, then they play Chelsea in the second leg of the League Cup, then they have the FA Cup against Palace, and they have, I don't know, I think Watford they play the next league match. So that's all within like a pretty short span. So with all the injuries they have, and just not even injuries, but like Son's out, right, with not an injury, just one of these.
Yeah, no, we'll see now how their squad fares with that.
I actually wanted to ask you, completely take the topic away from Tottenham, but I saw, like, I was reading on the CAF, right? There was a thread, the Luke Shaw performances thread. How did you think Luke Shaw played yesterday?
I thought he played okay. I actually don't remember that much of his performance, to be honest. I mean, he was actually playing a lot more defensively than Ashley Young was. If you look at their average position map, which is always one of my favourites, Young is still quite far up on it, whereas Shaw is a lot further back and was playing more defensively than he has for a while. I don't know if that's out of just being forced there because of Tottenham's kind of play, or whether it's by instruction. I don't remember too much about Luke Shaw yesterday, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that I agree that I think it seems to me like there's always a lot of criticism when he's not contributing a ton to the attacking phase of how we play, which I understand. And actually, it is at times frustrating because it's like there are times where he has so much space in front of him and he seems to like not just drive into it for whatever reason. Even though he has that physical capability to do that, right? Like we've seen him do it before. And then there are times even within a match where he'll do it, but like it just seems like people get very frustrated with that. And then
it could have been tactical yesterday.
That's what I thought. Right.
Well, because Martial and Rashford have been obviously specifically told, you stay high, stay wide. It means that our fullbacks have to do more of a defensive job than they usually would. When often, Martial is protecting. It's usually not Rashford for a while on that side. It's either Lingard or Mata, whoever it is. So I think it could be tactical, and he's been instructed to just sit in a bit yesterday. We don't know what exactly he's been told.
Yeah, and in yesterday's match, like he had even less protection than Young did, right? Because Herrera is ostensibly the kind of the right
whereas
side
he's
midfielder.
Got Pogba, who's just all over the place.
Right, and Pogba's got license to go forward. So like he was getting doubled up constantly in the first half, right? Like it was Sissoko which actually that was a really big loss to them, and we scored right after he got injured. But yeah, Sissoko and Trippier were just doubling him up constantly, and I think there was, one time Trippier did beat him 1v1, but then another time he put in that cross which Ali got on the end of, and then Kane scored, but he was offside. But like other than that, they didn't. I thought he did a really good job considering the fact that he was outnumbered for most of the match. And I don't know, I just thought it was really, like I understand against certain teams where you want him to be more attacking and that can be frustrating. But yesterday just was not that match at all for me. I thought him and Lindelof were really good defensively, if not perfect, but really good. And I thought, Jones was, how Kane didn't score yesterday with some of the defending Jones had on him was ridiculous.
No, it was, like I say, pretty crazy that, you might not expect absolutely deadly finishing from somebody like Ali, but you do expect it from Harry Kane. And yeah, the amount of chances he had not to put one away, like I say, we did have the luck in our favour for this game, thankfully.
This game was never about me or him. Never. Yeah, you made it out to be. For us, it's 3 points, and we had to beat them today if we're going to have a chance to catch them. I'm just doing my job every single day here, and until the contract runs out, end of June, I think is. I'll have a holiday in there, so I'm not thinking about that whatsoever.
The other big story, obviously pre-match and obviously post as well, was the whole managerial situation. And, we had quite a discussion on it last week about Ole versus Pochettino. And I think we were all still kind of slightly favouring Pochettino. But yeah, what does the result of this game do for you in that kind of view now? I mean, in the bookies have now gone joint kind of favourites for Ole and Pochettino, whereas so far Pochettino have been the favourite. So they're kind of moving in that direction. I think, in fact, Paddy Power have started paying out on Ole to be our permanent manager, but they always pull out stunts like that, and it doesn't really mean a lot. But yeah, I would absolutely love it that he goes forward like this and keeps going. Like I said, I didn't really expect the win in this game. Our next test will be, not to look lightly on the likes of Brighton and all, but yeah, next test will be away in the FA Cup at Arsenal. And then we've got 5 matches leading up to that Paris Saint-Germain match to really see what we can do.
Oh man, I think we can put a real beating on Arsenal. They look so weak right now.
Yeah. Look.
I mean, we drew them with Mourinho, and we looked like that was when they were kind of in form, and they hadn't lost in 75 matches or whatever the hell it was, and we still drew them 2-2, and they only scored because of 2 mistakes we made. So I think that Emery. I thought the entire year, like, he's done some good things there, I guess, but I felt they've been getting really lucky all year, and this kind of downturn in form doesn't surprise me that much, just because I think they have been riding their luck a lot, and that luck has maybe dried up a little bit. So hopefully we can go there and put on a Fergie special.
Yeah, and look, we've got a relatively good record against Arsenal recently. I mean, in the last 6 matches we've won half of them, and as you say, they're not on good form at all. We're now level with them on points.
Right.
I've thrown another few quid on us finishing ahead of Arsenal because there's a particular Arsenal supporting friend of mine who was having a lot of fun all this season with our struggles. So as soon as we've been back on a bit of form, I made him put his money where his mouth is, and I said, come on then, let's have a bit of money on who's going to finish higher between our teams. So we made this bet just about 2 weeks ago, basically. And we're already even in that one. We'll see. I'm feeling quietly confident on that one getting paid out as well, I hope, because I had to pay out my 10 quid on Mourinho getting sacked before Christmas. One more week would have kept that £10 in my pocket, but unfortunately not.
Well, I mean, if he was worked for Paddy Power, I think he'd pay you out already on
that. But look, like you say, this Cup, Arsenal Cup matches always remind me back to that 99 semi-final. That's the first thing I think of when I think about Arsenal and the FA Cup. It was interesting as well, the slight reactions that I think I said I was slightly disappointed to get Arsenal because I get a bit bored by having kind of Premier League opposition in the FA Cup. I like these kind of matches where we go away to some, lower league team, and it gives that whole David versus Goliath and giant killing potential to the game. And especially, sometimes I think more as a match goer, and our away fans, they love it when we end up going to these, small stadiums of not even Championship, ideally
League One,
and places that we don't normally get to go, and we normally get a big allocation and take like 5,000-6,000 to these games, and it's normally a brilliant atmosphere. Whereas I think you and some of the other guys were like, no, look, these are exactly the kind of games we want to get, and the big Premier League games, one-off knockout tournaments. So you were very happy to see us get this kind of draw, right?
Yeah, I wanted to see it. I mean, I was really happy, not even just because I do think there's something about like the one-off kind of against a big side. There's something, it's always like a night. Not always, but I feel like a lot of these FA Cup matches, especially the ones with Arsenal, United City, something like that, where they always kind of schedule that as a night game. So there's something about playing under the lights that I like a lot. But more than anything, I just wanted it because we need to kind of get as much information about Solskjaer as possible in terms of how he copes with these different, like this, like as much as I just said that we should basically pump Arsenal. It is like going to be a more tactical match, right, than playing Preston North End or something. Like it's just going to be more, it's more on the edge, the game, right? It's more finely balanced. So I just want to see how he performs in these high stakes matches because we don't have that much time to really evaluate him as a potential manager for Manchester United, other than his time at Molde and Cardiff, which is it's really hard to know what to take from any of that. So I was just happy for that draw in that sense, and also just I do think that I still remember we lost to them in that FA Cup under Van Gaal, right? His first year where what was it, like Valencia just passed it to Welbeck or something? I don't remember what it was. It was something ridiculous, but I've always I just would like to get one up on them again and knock them out of the FA Cup, since that's been kind of their thing the last few years. Is even under Wenger was like they were like the FA Cup team. So it's never a bad time to knock Arsenal out of a cup.
Yeah, definitely. As they've just lost to West Ham this weekend. They're actually playing Chelsea in between, whereas we've got a home match to Brighton. So yeah, bit more difficult.
Well, hopefully they win that. I think that would be the ideal scenario.
Yeah, no, look, at the moment, all these teams, or maybe a draw is better for us. I don't know.
And even Spurs, like they could get pulled back into this now too. They're only a point ahead of Chelsea.
Definitely. Look, as I said, 6 points behind Arsenal, Chelsea, and 7 points behind Spurs. All those gaps are doable for us, which, a few weeks ago looked a long, long way away for us to be talking about top four. But yeah, now it's definitely worth a gamble. Arsenal in their last FA Cup game had a relatively easy win away to Blackpool. We didn't really mention, because since the last time we recorded, we did play our FA Cup match against Reading. It was the only performance under Ole so far that was slightly disappointing. We still won it because Reading were pretty awful, but we actually got slightly dominated by Reading in this game. They actually played us at home and had more possession than us.
They just couldn't finish.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They were just totally lacking in any finishing. They had more chances, more possession. So yeah, it was a bit of a bizarre game, but it was very much a second string for us. And which I had no problem with. There was quite a few of our fans who were complaining about that. Maybe even, I think you were saying you weren't that happy about him making so many changes.
Did I say that?
I don't know. Somebody did in our conversation. But anyway, I was totally happy with it after the kind of run of games we'd had to give people a rest and some of the people who needed matches. If you remember, Sanchez started, Lukaku started and did score. Pereira had a start. We had a very inexperienced midfield. It was basically Fred, Pereira, McTominay. With Mata was kind of in there as well, although he's a bit more attacking. But very inexperienced there, all of our fringe players. And we even had Darmian playing centre-back, which I've never seen before, and I don't think has ever happened before.
He was one of the few that I thought actually legitimately had a good game.
Yeah, no, but he didn't actually feature on the bench then after. I thought he might be our kind of emergency defensive backup, but he wasn't even on the bench for this Tottenham game. I don't know what would have happened if we'd had a central defensive injury in this match. I guess McTominay or Matic or something like that would have been forced to play around there because we didn't even have Darmian on the bench after that. But do you remember anything you wanted to add from that Reading match? Like I say, it was a bit of a disappointing one. And there wasn't much apart from just seeing some of our more fringe players get a game, really.
Well, I think the only disappointing thing, and this actually probably maybe should have talked about a little earlier though, is Lukaku is just so, I don't know what's going on. He doesn't move. Like he does not. The difference between him up top versus Rashford is so palpable. Like the pressing is non-existent. His movement seems so much more limited. Obviously we've talked about to death about his, failing, shortcomings in hold up play and just, quick interchanges. Not very good at that. And, it's obviously he's not a useless player. That would be completely wrong to say. But the more I'm watching us under Ole and with Rashford starting up top and with Martial and Lingard, and then like even against Tottenham, he came in and everyone else is running around like desperate to, hold on to this lead, and he's just kind of lollygagging up top and not really closing anybody down at pace. And that's just so, it's very frustrating to watch. And like maybe that's, habits are hard to change, right? He's kind of played with West Brom and Everton before he got to United, and I don't think that was really the approach that he had to take. I don't think he plays in a high press for Belgium either. So he's, maybe this is just something that needs to be coached out of him. But, right now it's just really frustrating to watch the difference, and I just can't see him making that position his again until unless Rashford goes on an extended goal drought, his form drops something, or if, Lukaku finds his form again. Because even the goals he scored, he scored, it's good for him to get back in the goals. He obviously has struggled a lot of this year with that. But, it's not like there's just such a, I wouldn't back him in that same situation Rashford was in yesterday. I would not back Lukaku to finish that. I just wouldn't. I feel like he would try to over elaborate and do like some useless step over and kick it like 50 yards out or something.
I think that kind of goal that Rashford scored, I think even last season when Lukaku was banging them in, it's still not necessarily a goal you'd expect him to score in that way. And like you say, they are very different type of players. And yeah, it was something we talked about a lot under Mourinho. And that was at the time where some people were saying that, well, Rashford is not a Mourinho kind of striker. And that's why he's never going to get a chance up front for Mourinho. Whereas, Lukaku is a very different type of player. But, I said last week that I think Lukaku can adapt to this more fluid way of playing. I've seen him even, from his Everton and West Brom days, doing a lot more running, pushing around. And I just think, let's give him a bit of time. I think to have that option from the bench is still brilliant.
Yeah, it's great. I think he needs to lose weight.
Well, he said that himself, hasn't he? He said he bulked up for the World Cup. I don't know whether he was asked to or he just decided to for Belgium. And he said it has hindered him now coming back. And he's said himself that he knows he's had to lose some of that bulk to get a bit leaner, to be doing a bit more of the running. He's admitted it himself. So, hopefully we'll see a bit more of that. And he's still finding his way. But like I say, to have these kind of options, whether it's Sanchez, Lukaku on the bench, I think, it's nothing to complain about. And I think he'll still pitch in with some important goals for us when we need him. He's getting a lot of stick from all round at the moment. I think at the moment, Lukaku's probably taking more flack than any of our squad.
Yeah. And
a lot of talk about his first touch and whatever. And it's fair criticism. But I still think that he'll have an important role for us to play this year. And I expect him to get some goals for us when we need them.
Yeah, I mean, if him and Sanchez can obviously get going, then, we have one of the more potent strike forces in the league, obviously, then in that situation. Maybe the most if both of them start firing. So, a good problem to have, and one that we didn't have under Mourinho because it looked like all of them were garbage under Mourinho.
Well, you remember those times when Mourinho dropped Lukaku and we didn't have a great game, then he'd say, look, you always ask me, why am I always playing Lukaku? And then, look, you've seen Martial, Rashford, they've done nothing today. He pretty much came out after match and said that.
Yeah, I remember that.
And now you see now what Rashford can do. Martial's actually had a bit of a quiet few weeks, but he's still playing pretty well. I mean, he'd actually had an outstanding month just before that. But he's still doing well. And you can remember back to these kind of comments and all. And I really do wonder what Mourinho's thinking about what's going on at the moment. I'd absolutely love to hear comments from him, but I don't think we're going to hear.
I think he has a gag order.
Yeah, I think one, there'll be a gag order. Two, he probably doesn't want to say much about it. But I'd love to know what he thinks about it and how he feels of seeing the team now. The huge difference.
Oh, it'll be that they betrayed him. Like they weren't putting in the shifts for him. It'll never be like.
And to be fair, I think maybe there is a little bit of something in that, but at the same time, maybe he brought a lot of that on himself and can't complain about it when he's publicly slagging people off. Then what does he expect at the end of the day?
It's like for a manager though, the most important thing is just in any sport. I always think like the most important thing you can do as a manager is to make sure that your players, even if your tactics suck, if they believe in your tactics, that immediately makes them it'll make it look so much better than it is, right? If you have buy-in from your players. But if you have bad tactics and they don't buy in, and you're kind of killing morale by just criticizing them at every turn, it's inevitable. Like, yeah, I agree that they probably weren't putting in the best effort for him. I just don't know. It's easy to just say, like, well, it shouldn't matter how you feel about the manager because the club is paying your wages and you represent the club, and so you should always step on the pitch and give everything you have. But it's subconscious, right? Like, you don't necessarily need to consciously be thinking, oh, I'm not going to put in my best effort. It just kind of comes out that way because you don't feel a connection with your boss, essentially, right? I mean, this happens in every field, not just in football. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll never know that. Maybe we'll know one day, but for now, we just have to guess what he would be thinking.
Yeah. Like you say, no idea. One day we'll read his book in 20 years' time or something like that and see what he has to say about it all. Yeah, the one other thing that just came to mind actually from that Reading game while we're still talking about FA Cup was we did see an appearance from Tatif Chong from the bench, one of our youngsters. And again, that's something I love to see. This is the things that I used to like to see. I remember in our cup days under Fergie, always used to be excited because it'd be the opportunity to see some of those next kind of level young players and see what they can do. Well, to be fair to Mourinho, we did see a couple of these guys introduced now and again under him as well, but I think we'll see a lot more of this kind of thing under Ole going forward. Chong, he didn't have that much chance to get into the game, so yeah, it was difficult to say much about it. But yeah, just even seeing him on the pitch, getting a few minutes, felt good. And I think, yeah, there was also Garner on the bench.
Yeah.
That day, again, it's somebody who's being talked about a lot. So yeah, I hope to see a bit more. Like I say, under Van Gaal, we did see a lot of time for the young players, and it was something that I did always really like under him. And then yeah, slightly went backwards under Mourinho, although yeah, not as bad as maybe I had feared, as some youth players did get some time to come through, your McTominays and whatever. But yeah, let's hope the next generation get a bit more chance and see what they can do as well when they're given the opportunity to go forward from there. Yeah, look, like I say, we're just rolling on now. Six in a row, which is crazy to think of for Solskjaer.
Squeeze back across goal. 2-0. Shane Duffy has doubled Brighton's lead.
Brighton coming up. We did lose to them earlier in the season. I've kind of almost taken it a bit lightly, as if it's just going to be another routine win. But yeah, that's often when you get complacent and lose these things. So hopefully it doesn't go that way.
I think he should rotate for that a little bit. That might change. Like I know I agree with what you're saying. Like, you come off of such a big win, a nice stretch of victories, and everybody's kind of happy. You're reading all these positive things about yourself in the media and the press. Yeah, I think it would be a good time to maybe rotate a couple of positions, maybe bring in players that are hungry for game time, give Dela a start maybe.
I think there might be a bit of rotation, but because we've got a kind of week's rest, there isn't any particularly need to. And then it's even a week till Arsenal, and I think we do then have a midweeker again, so there'll be a bit of rotation after that because we've got a Burnley midweek Premier League game after that. But yeah, it might be around then that we'll expect to see some more players coming in. But yeah, like that's why it's great at this time that the likes of Lukaku, Sanchez are fighting to get back into the team because yeah, it really keeps everybody on their feet. I think we'll probably next record after that Arsenal game, and hopefully we'll be talking about 8 in a row. But yeah, maybe that's too much to be expecting.
Right, hopefully.
All right, so yeah, good night from us, and yeah, see you after that Arsenal match.
All right, good night.